Picture an invention that can predict, learn, adapt, and evolve. Now, what if we told you that the future is here and it's called artificial intelligence? Today, we're diving into AI with Prof. Alexiei Dingli, a renowned expert from the University of Malta. With over 2 decades of expertise, he's a leading force in this field. His contributions extend beyond academia into entrepreneurship, industry leadership, and even public service. With impressive credentials and a vast repertoire of knowledge, Prof. Dingli is a true AI powerhouse. So buckle up as we delve into an engaging chat about all things AI with Prof. Dingli. In our conversation today, we've covered a range of topics. We've delved into the current state and potential future of AI, its transformative power in industries such as healthcare and finance, and its role in education. We've considered the ethical aspects, the need for transparency and accountability. We've learned about Prof. Dingli's pioneering work, his entrepreneurial ventures, and his vision for AI. Remember, AI isn't just about technology. It's about revolutionizing our lives. Until next time, keep exploring the possibilities.
First question, Alexei. How is AI currently shaping our daily lives? And what are some examples of AI application that have become essential in our routines?
Okay, so first of all, Valerio, thank you for inviting me to this interview. AI is practically affecting all aspects of our daily life. But the problem with AI is that, most of the time we do not realize that we're being so much affected by AI. Let me give you some examples. So if you check your email, probably there's a spam filter trying to remove the spam from your email. If you have a mobile phone, which most people do, probably you have some Siri, Cortana, or some other assistant trying to help you. If it's just even a normal search, which we take for granted, but if you think about it, search is probably the most pure form of AI, because you have a zillion of documents and it finds you the best documents for you. Even when it comes to social media, like Facebook, whatever, or even just purchasing stuff online. So one, there's the recommender systems that are recommending what other objects you might like, but also once you actually make the purchase, there's the fraud detection, trying to detect whether you're being passing through a merchant that is legit, or maybe you're being part of a fraud. So there is a lot of AI technologies working, many of them in the background, many of them somewhat disappearing because you do not realize that they're over there, but they're affecting your daily life quite significantly, I have to say. Of course, these are just small examples. There are others. And you asked me, sort of how they'll affect our daily routine. They'll affect because they'll make our life probably better and probably safer. So every day, as I said, we're dependent on these technologies. If it's just opening the window, having a small bot, somebody ringing the digital bell and recording the audio. But also, for example, when it comes to things like, cooking in the kitchen. Today, most modern ovens have some sort of AI inside them in order to ensure that the food is cooked correctly. Things like the air conditioner, for climate control. AI would control the correct temperature to make your rooms pleasant. But also, when you take your car, most modern cars today have some sort of AI. So if it's lane detection, if it's parking sensors, if it's whatever, practically, all of these technologies, the new kind of technologies, have infused within them some sort of AI. And they're there to help us make our lives better every day.
So basically, we are already using AI, but we don't realize it.
Yes, very much, very much.
Okay, then. Second question for you. What potential change in the job market can be expected with the increasing of using AI, and how can individuals prepare for this shift in their careers?
Okay, so when it comes to careers, I would envisage that there are a lot of changes coming up. First of all, we're seeing a lot of signals coming from different industries. So, if I tell you a few, if you look at IBM, they're freezing their recruitment. So, because they want to understand exactly what is the effect of AI. If you look at British Telecom, they decided to reduce thousands of jobs by the end of this decade, precisely because of AI. And remember, when we talk about AI, really and truly, we're talking mainly about generative AI, which was or became popular in the past few years. So things like ChatGPT, DALI, these sort of technologies. And the interesting thing about them is that if you look at the statistics, so I recently saw a study by MIT, and they claimed that people that actually use these technologies manage to improve their performance. So they finish tasks 25% faster than normal. Their quality of work rises up by 40%. So these are massive figures. And you can imagine when you have a company and you give them these technologies, these super tools, and they can manage to bring your worker to be more productive than they were before. So that is one aspect of it. The second aspect of it is that, of course, this will have a negative impact on jobs as well. So if we look at what the World Economic Forum and the report, the Future of Jobs report, they claim that in 2020, according to their research, AI will be affecting around 80 million jobs, but it will also create around 96 million new jobs. Now, last year, after the generative AI became popularized, they also published the second report, which was like an update of the first report, which was published in 2020. And in this report, they found that AI will still affect around 83 million new existing jobs, but it will create around 65 million new jobs. So as you can see, there's a discrepancy of around close to 30 million jobs. And this causes a problem because this means that the number of jobs created will be much less than we had originally thought. And the reason for this is because generative AI is taking over some of those jobs. Now you have to keep in mind that generative AI is still in its infancy. I mean, even though the technology has been sort of developing since 2017, the real impact came not last November, but the November before when ChatGPT was released. And since then, we've seen so much development that it is highly unlikely that we'll see any stop anytime soon. So I think we have to be very cautious about what's going to happen because, as I said, on one hand, there are obvious benefits, but on the other hand, there are obvious negatives as well. Okay. What I can tell you as well, Valerio, is that according to LinkedIn, in the coming 5-6 years, so by 2030, around 65% of the skills that are required by jobs will be very different to what we have today. So you can imagine the amount of change that we will be facing in these coming 5 years. Yeah. I cannot tell you exactly what they will be, but definitely we will have a lot of changes coming our way, and we'll need to adapt to those new changes.
Of course. In what way does AI contribute to industry evolution, and what opportunity does this present for businesses and professionals in terms of innovation and competitiveness? And adding to a question, even related to, for example, to cybersecurity, because your background is IT as well. So, your opinion can be important.
Okay, let me divide them in two. Okay, so first I'll talk about industry, and then I'll speak a little bit about cybersecurity. Sure. So when it comes to industry, we'll see very big changes. First of all, we're seeing this tsunami of sensors being installed all over the place. So IoTs, Internet of Things sensors, will be installed with the major machines. But of course, we're also looking at automation. So automation will also become very big. According to World Economic Forum, it will reach around 43% of industries by 2027. So we're talking almost half of the factories in the world will be automated. Now, of course, this is a trend which we've been seeing for quite a while. So in 2019, as part of my studies, I was looking at industries coming from the Far East. And I was noticing this trend of what is known as dark manufacturing or lights out manufacturing. Mm-hmm. So essentially, this means that these are factories without lights. It's not because they don't have lights, but the lights are off. Yeah, because there are no humans working in the factory. It's just robots. Now, what does this mean? This means that if before I was somebody who just wanted to work, maybe I had no education or whatever, I used to go and work in a factory. No, because I could easily find a job over there. But now these factories do not require these kinds of people. So, because of course they're automated, but they require highly skilled engineers. In fact, I know of a factory that employs no factory hands, but then it employs 120 engineers. So you can see, Valerio, the shift which exists. From one end, the low paid, low skilled. And now we're moving towards the high-paid, high-skilled jobs. And this has two very problematic effects. One of them is because these people that were previously low-skilled will finish without a job, no, without anything to do. So we need to find ways of using the skills of these people, because of course, they're still valid, and we need to help them as well.
Of course.
But on the other hand, even though there is this huge demand for engineers, software developers, whatever, the world is not producing enough of these professionals. So it is estimated that by 2030, around 80 million unfilled jobs will be in industry, because we're not managing to create enough people to fill these roles. So this is a little bit, the paradox, where you have people that are probably losing their job, but we won't have people enough to fill the other roles. Now, when it comes to cybersecurity will become a very big headache, and I'll tell you why. So far, you had hackers, people doing hacks or attacks, I don't know, the denial of service attacks, Trojans, ransomware, whatever. But what's happening now, and we're seeing more of these, is that these kind of attacks are being infused with AI. So, it's not just about writing a program and releasing the virus, but these programs also have some sort of AI with them. Now, this means that it will be extremely hard to try to find and detect these programs. And of course, we need some sort of protection from them. On the other hand, you have law enforcement, but law enforcement is always trying to, catch up with technology, because they're faced with this new breed of AI, and then they have to, of course, create some sort of AI to counteract that. So I think exactly the next warfare when it comes to cybersecurity will be fought on AI. On either side, where you have AI trying to hack or damage a system, and AI trying to protect or counteract the attacks of another system.
I understand. So it's always running like a good and bad.
Yes.
Like police and
Yes, unfortunately.
So how do ethical considerations such as privacy concern and biases in algorithms impact the development and deployment of AI technologies across various aspects of our life?
Well, they impact, and I think they should impact even more, because unfortunately, not everyone is sensitive to these problems. Now, remember, we do have, thank God, I dare say, in Europe, things like the AI Act that's coming into force. But still, a lot of people, even developers, are not aware of these issues. So things like privacy concern, we've all passed before through the issues with Cambridge Analytica, when they practically were using technology to influence people, influence elections, so Brexit and the American elections as well. So this is very problematic. As I said, luckily in Europe we have laws like the AI Act, we have the GDPR, etc. But still, no law is infallible, and we need to do as much as we can to protect the citizens. When it comes to algorithmic bias, it's maybe a little bit more problematic, because bias is not always evident immediately. And when we look at these cases, most of the time they discover a bias, but retrospectively, so somebody got hurt with this bias, and we realize that there is a bias. So a lot of effort should be made in the creation of systems to eliminate as much as possible the bias. But you have to keep in mind that, it's not always possible, or definitely not always possible, to eliminate it completely, which are two different things. Now, why am I saying that? First of all, you have to keep in mind that AI consumes a lot of data. And most of the time, the data which it consumes is data which is either publicly available or things that it gets from different sources. But if you look around us, if you look at the world we live in, our world is already very biased. Just go on Google Images and type doctor, and you'll see that most doctors are male and not female. If you type nurse, most nurses are female and not male. So we live in this biased world. And what we have to do is try to teach the AI not to be biased, because otherwise, it's like a megaphone. Whatever we tell him, it will make it 100 times even worse. And it will have some real consequences on people. I can tell you a little bit, some horror stories. A story which relates to Amazon. Now, Amazon has created this system it was an AI system to shortlist CVs, so applications. And when they started using the system, they realized that the Amazon system was automatically refuting female applicants. At first, they didn't realize how that happened. But then they realized that when they trained the system, they trained it on CVs of people that already work at Amazon, because they thought if they work at Amazon, they must be good fits for Amazon, no? But then we all know that in tech companies, 70% of workers are male. So automatically, the system learned the bias and was applying it to the applicants. There's also a famous story of Steve Wozniak, one of the founders of Apple. No, he says that he has a joint account with his wife. When he applied for a credit card, he got a credit limit of, say, 10,000 euros, and his wife got one of 5,000 euros. Why? When they have a joint account and everything together. And the only reason they could found was because of gender. So she was penalized because she was a woman. So these are inherent biases in the system. And we have to be very careful, even when developing new systems, in order to remove them as much as possible, of course.
Of course. The last question plus two questions people from Telegram group ask me to ask you. Looking ahead, what is the envisioned future for widespread of AI adoption, and what measure can society take to ensure responsible and beneficial use while minimizing potential and negative consequences?
Okay, so I'll refer to how I started in the beginning. No, so a lot of people already use a lot of AI, already are dependent of AI. So I would say that there is already widespread adoption of AI. What will happen now is that people will become more conscious about it, because before they were using it, but they had no idea it was AI. But now they will become more conscious. Remember as well that most of the people's perception of AI comes from Hollywood. No, that is where they heard about AI. So the Terminator, Ex Machina, or all the other movies whereby an AI is coming to kill us. Now, to reassure your viewers, we're a little bit far from that, so don't worry about that. But of course, we need to take care of AI. I quote Professor Stephen Hawking, which he said, AI is most probably the most powerful tool ever invented by humans. And of course, it depends how we're going to use it. We can use it for good, but we can also use it for bad. And that is why, linking to what I said before, regulation is important, because via regulation, we can have effective policies and regulations and govern AI. Without, of course, striving innovation, because that is not what we want to do. But we need to strike the balance between protecting the citizens and also allowing AI to proceed and flourish. The second is very important, is public awareness. I don't think there is enough awareness when it comes to AI. In fact, I thank you for this interview, because you're helping awareness. I also urge your viewers to have a look at my blog post as well, because it's what I try to do. And there are other people who try to do that. So, the more we spread information about AI, and information which is not rocket science, but information which people understand, I think that is very, very important. And linked to this, I truly believe that, now is the time to maybe create an overhaul of our educational system, and even start teaching our children about not just AI, but all the emerging technologies that come with it. Because, this is the world which we're living in. The third one is, AI is not perfect. It will make mistakes. We've already seen it even with self-driving cars. They're super safe, but there were some victims already that actually died because of self-driving cars. So when these things happen, and they will happen, we need to address these challenges immediately. We need to take swift decisions, make corrections, and sort of sway the AI so that it goes for that direction where it is of benefit to humanity and not just of harm.
Okay, then thank you very much for the answer. Now, these two questions. Okay. So the first question, you mentioned movies like Terminator or Matrix. These user ask, but in the future, from what you can imagine, will end up like a Terminator or Matrix. So the machine could be so clever, even in order of batteries, energy, etc. Then could be a potential
Okay, let me divide them into two. Okay,
Yeah.
so when it comes to the matrix, we are already living in the matrix. Okay, so I'm sorry for this user. Think about the premise of the matrix. No, so you have people stuck to the system because they're being used as very inefficient batteries, I dare to say, but they're being used as the batteries. Now think about that model. That is exactly the model of social media. No, so you're stuck to social media, consuming content which most of the time makes no sense or has no value, and for what? So that the company earns money from your time. So that is exactly the model of the matrix.
It's true.
And we are very much hooked from the little ones to the older ones, always scrolling social media. So we're already in the matrix. I'm sorry to tell him. When it comes, there's a Terminator. When it comes to the Terminator part, well, when it comes to algorithms, we're still far away. I can tell him that, even if you try to see how certain algorithms work, even like ChatGPT, which is a fantastic algorithm, there's no real intelligence, there's no real sentience behind it. So we are still very far away from it. Having said that, we already have tools which are autonomous. No, so we've seen even in the recent wars where they send autonomous drones to kill people.
Sure.
So these already exist. But what's missing from the Terminator part is the brain that decides that the people have to die. So that we're still far away. And I think it will still take a while with our current technology, unless, of course, we have some breakthrough in quantum computing. Because if quantum computers comes about, then we'll have such a huge amount of processing power that I cannot really say what will happen back then.
Yes, no, of course. The last question, Alexiei, that I think is the most important. What kind of path or roadmap the young future can or should learn to be prepared in the AI, and do you have some suggestion for them?
Yes. So I think first of all, let's make it clear that not everyone needs to become an AI scientist. Okay, but irrespective what you choose in your life, I am confident you will use some sort of AI. So that's for sure. So my advice to the younger generation is to keep your options open and be curious, because what we need is not people that can memorize books, but we need people that can think with their brains, people that when faced with a solution, they find a problem, so problem solvers, people who are creative. And that is really what makes us very different from the machines. So I think if you want to harness the future, and considering so much change is going to happen in the future, be open-minded, be creative, be problem solver, and I'm sure you'll be at the forefront of the future.
Our brain is still on the top of the categories.
Yes.
Okay, that is
yes.
good. That is good. Thank you, Alexiei, for this interview.
Welcome.
And
Welcome.
I hope you answer to all questions, because, as I told you, especially the Italians, they ask me, ask this question, because about AI there is a lot of question. But
yes.
Thank you very much, and I hope
Welcome.
to invite you again.
Thank you.